Okay, the last video we did an interior painting quote, and in this video we're going to be doing an exterior painting quote and covering some of the ins and outs of how that is going to work. So do bear with me. What we'll do is we'll even bring in a picture that I got from the internet of a house, and we'll take a look at quoting that as an example. In the last video, we were quoting sort of theoretically. This video, it's going to be a little bit more tangible. So perhaps more interesting to stick around all the way through. Again, we're going to start from a template. So there's built-in templates in the software that come with your account right away. I'm going to scroll through, filter by exterior, see what's available here. Is there a decent template? Let's try this template that I made. We'll see if that's a good template to start off with. So last video we covered how to add a new property and add a new client. In this video, I'm not going to bore you with that. Again, we're pulling now our exterior production rates. We're going to review our general description, and when we're happy with all of that, we're going to click next. We covered areas in the last video. So the way that this is structured, I've said full exterior is specified in the area, meaning that that is one area for the whole quote. Now, in larger quotes, larger exterior painting quotes, let's say it's a very obvious when there's multiple buildings on a property and you need to quote things, you can create multiple areas so you can have a different set of numbers for each building, which makes it a lot easier to quote. If it's a super large project, you could also do it by front, left, back, and right, or thereabouts. Let's say you had multiple areas, and well, I'm going to pause for that. We'll get back to that in actually the following video. So just stick with me on the quote. So I'm going to now upload the image that we should take a look at. And you'll be able to see that here. Maybe I'll zoom in. So actually it's sort of, let's say the customer just wants us to paint that right side and that front. And then let's say we'll go through and quote everything here. And we'll come up with the number of hours and a price. And we'll have to assume some measurements. Okay, so we got that there. So let's go and get a start with the siding. We do have a pretty good production rate with the stucco preset. So I actually don't mind that, 150 and 350. It is wood siding by the looks of it in that picture. So what I'm going to do is change the label, and I'm just going to say wood siding. Alternatively, you can find a new preset here. Wood siding, be the same thing, but either way. Although this is a far lower coverage, 200. Yeah, the wood probably does absorb quite a bit more paint. So again, the rates will come with the software, but that's that. So now we're measuring our siding. So again, let's hit equals, and let's go back to our image. And let's get for the front and the right. So we'll probably have to do multiple equations. And again, this isn't about perfection, but looks like we got 2 car doors there. And we got a little section there. So again, when we're measuring, we're going through all doors and windows, and we're just imagining that's a wall. And the reason, a wall without any openings. And the reason we're doing that is because it actually does take the same amount of time to cut around those things. Even when you incorporate paint and materials, it still takes the same cost to cut around all of those openings than it would be to just go over a totally free and clear wall. So we don't worry about that. We just go through it. So let's say here, I'm not sure exactly what the average opening for a garage door is, but let's say that's 15 feet, more or less 15 feet, and then another 10 feet. So 25. And now we're also about simplicity here. So each story is 10 feet. So this is one story. I can't see if there might be a little bit of a peak above there. So maybe we'll add a little extra for that. And if we said that's 15, you do a little bit of math. You multiplied by that height. Let's say it's 5 feet. 15 by 5 divided by 2. I always like to add a little bit extra, but yeah, we can kind of say about 50 square feet additional for that. Let's say that little peak area that's behind the tree. And then we have 15 plus 10, so 25 by 10. So 250 plus 50 is 300. So what I'm going to do, bear with me, is I'm going to enter in 300. And then I'm going to hit the plus sign, and we're going to keep going back into that photo. And you're doing this while you're on a job site. So now we're going to be measuring from this corner all the way to this corner. And quite frankly, we could always just add in that because it's all going to be at 20 feet besides that additional peak there. And there might be a little bit of siding behind there. So if I'm imagining myself stepping this out, it's probably about 25, 30 feet here. I'm probably getting 10 steps between there and there. Probably getting another 10 steps there. So probably 60 feet by 20 or something about like that. So let's go ahead and put that in. And then we have again another, I'd say 75 for the peak. So we got 60 by 20 plus 75. So 1575 for our siding. And this is not going to be the full exterior. Oops. Let's just change that. We'll call this front, and right side of house. Let's say they painted already the other two sides. Okay. Again, we're kind of dealing with my slow internet here. Front and right side, save area. Okay, perfect. So we're looking at 1575. Now, at our production rate of 150, it's 18 hours and 30 minutes. Or you can think about it, that's basically one long day for two guys using 13.78 gallons. I think that sounds about right. Now, there's different production rates that do different things. So this is a brush and roll production rate. Let's say if I add a lot of time for, let's say, masking in the prep and it's ready to spray, I might have a faster production rate here, but I'll also have hours in for the masking. So because this is a brush and roll production rate, I'm not going to really add in much time for masking because there's not as much masking you need to do if you're brushing and rolling. So that is looking good. I'm going to save that. Now we're going to go take a look at what else we are quoting. So let's just go back to that picture for a second here. It looks like there's a lot of windows and probably hard to tell whether the soffits need to be painted here. Don't think they do. I'm going to imagine that those are aluminum soffits that don't need to be painted. But we have a trim board that goes underneath the soffit, and we have the fascia board as well. Those pretty much look like they double up. It's obviously a blurry image. And then we have all these posts and beams and windows and two vents. So why don't we just start with what we already know? We already know the length. So the length that we got was 60, and we also got 25. So I'm going to go ahead and add 60 and 25. And because there's kind of that trim under the gutter, the fascia, and there's also a trim there. I'm going to go ahead and multiply that by 2. Okay. And then we're going to add in some extra in a bit. So we'll just do that first. And again, you're going to do this systematically as you go through. 60 plus 25. Okay. And should add correctly, but I'm going to put brackets by 2. And then we're going to add our next thing. So that kind of encapsulates this area fully, and it encapsulates most of this upper area because we have 1, 2. It's a little bit more complicated because we have 2 sections of trim there. There's probably a little bit extra here because we can imagine that fascia board that fascia peak gets flattened down, and might have to add another 20 feet there just at the top in order to sort of consider that. And so I'm going to go back and I'm just going to add 20 feet, and then we've done the whole top section, and I can be satisfied with that. And then I'm going to keep moving along. So I'll go plus, so 10 times 2, yeah, we'll go 20, yeah, 25. And that includes the below the soffit and the fascia itself. So plus 25. And then we're going to hit plus again. Go back to the image. It's a lot easier when you're at the house and you can kind of do this. Okay, so now we have this lower area. And it basically actually has the same sort of situation. It has that soffit. It actually has a little bit of an indent there, which I didn't notice before, how that indents. Could have given us a little bit of extra on our siding, but I'm still happy with where we're at. I guess there's an indent there too. But we're at 30 times 2, 60, plus another 30. We're at 90. There's no lower trim board here by the looks of it. So I'm going to add 90 to our trim measurement. And again, that's 60 for the front, or 30 for the front times 2, because there's below the soffit and above this and the under the gutter. And then plus there's that belly band on the right-hand side. So again, let's go to the back to the image. There's some corner boards that we should add. And there looks like there is, yeah, this arch sort of stuff is basically included, but we didn't quite get this peak. So that looks like another 40 because it's 20, 10, 10, 10, 10. So another 40. And then we have all these corner boards. Let's say there's 2 here. And again, 10 feet per story. So we're got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. I'm not trying to be perfect. Nothing is there. 70. And I'm guessing there's one more back there. 80. So what did I say? I think that's 80. Yeah, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. Plus 40 is 120. So we're going to get out of there. And we're going to go back here and we're going to add in 120. And that will be our entire trim done. So that includes fascia, vertical, and horizontal trim. 405 length. I think this is a pretty good hybridized production rate. If you want to get more specific, you can make the case, and certainly you'd be correct, that with fascia, because you're getting usually a wider piece of wood, you could theoretically lower that production rate if you were just quoting the barge boards or the fascia peaks on their own, and you wanted to separate out the, say, corner boards, which are a little bit easier. But I'm putting them all together, and I'm just going to do a hybridized production rate of 30, and I'm happy with that. Looks like 23 hours and 45 minutes and under 2 gallons. So that seems correct to me, and I'm going to save that. So the customer also wants frames to be painted. And now this is in our count section. So I'm going to be counting those up and applying the correct production rate. In this case, we have 2 frames per hour. So let's take another look at that. And the way that you count frames is pretty important. So you can always count them. You don't necessarily need to have the same frame in every area. You can actually have different frames, but then you count them differently. So, for example, we have this frame and this frame. We can put them in the same category if we count them differently, and they sort of average out. But if they're drastically different, or if you have a lot of kind of similar ones in one category and a lot of similar ones in another category, it may make sense to make two categories and have two different rates. But with this house, I'm comfortable amalgamating all the frames together. And again, as mentioned in the interior video, frames are a derivation of your linear rate. So you can take a look at this frame and you can say, okay, that's probably 4 feet, 4 feet, 4 feet. That's, let's say 12 feet when we kind of got that upper part anyway. So that's, 12 feet. Let's say we had 30 feet per hour. If you double that, you're at 24. So you're more or less seeing how we get 2 items per hour as our sort of default rate here, but we can always adjust that. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by the looks of it. We have lower here, we have 6. Now these are bigger ones. So 6, 7, 8. I think this is paintable. So I'm going to go 6, 7, 8. If this is paintable, I'm going to go 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Door frame, 14, 15, 16. Now we've got these garage door frames. They're going to take a little bit longer. What did I say? 16, 17. I'm going to count these as 1.5 each, so add in 3. And again, 1.5 frames per garage door just because they're a little bit bigger. So we're looking at 20 frames. And just to make life easier, because again, we're not looking for perfection, I think these vents will take approximately the same time as the frames. Maybe a little bit longer. So instead of calling them 2, I'm going to call that 3 again. So we're at 23 frames. So yeah, I'll count them again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. 22. So let's go ahead and put 22 frames. Okay, again, so 19 hours. And if we wanted to say, yeah, I think that makes sense, but I think I could do that a little bit faster because I think I might have overcounted that and these frames are kind of easy. Well, just change your production rate. And think about this with your painting knowledge in mind. Can you do 2.5 first coats on an average frame the way you counted them? Can you get that done in an hour? You might say you can do 3, and maybe you can do 4 because you're a good painter. But again, we're quoting for the average painter here. So keep that in mind. We want to be able to beat our budgets and make more money if possible. So I like 2.5 in this case, just based on these frames. And these are frames and vents. So all the frames and vents. Okay, so we're going to save that. We do need to select this, the trim paint. Okay, there's not a ton of prep needed here. I just know that we need to go in advance and wash this place. And it's going to take probably 6 hours just with everything, the setup and the takedown. And then we have a little bit of prep, not much. We have about 2 hours per side of scraping and sanding and priming. A little bit of caulking, not much. It's in pretty good condition. Okay, now the things that we didn't paint, it's very important that we note that down. So doors, metal and vinyl surfaces, yes. What else? The deck surface. Always write down what you're not going to be painting so that you don't get roped into painting it for free. That is not something that's very nice. Okay, so save that. I think There wasn't too much else we needed to exclude. So we'll leave it at that. And now let's go and review our numbers. Let's just make sure this actually makes sense before we send it. So I'm going to scroll down to our data table here. And we can see that this is a 72.5-hour job. And if I want to do the math and understand how my crew, what actually makes sense, I can take my calculator. I got my phone here. And I'm just going to take a look because my painters work typically 8-hour days. Some of them work longer, but let's just imagine 8-hour days for simplicity. 72.5 hours of the job. I want to put a 2-person crew there. So I'm going to divide that by 16, looking just under a week, 4.5 days for my crew. And that's prep, washing included, showing up there, painting all the siding and all the trim, excluding the doors, of course. Now, based on my hourly rate, it's going to be $6,160. $4,692 is labor. $1,466 is material. And we know that we're going to be paying approximately $2,062 in labor at that $30 an hour rate. So we're going to go ahead, and I think that seems right to me. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. And now I'm going to send this off to the customer once I review the quote. Okay. We can add in our image. Oh, remember we do that over here. I'm going to select that image. And I can just make a note here that we are including the front of the house and the back. Okay. Sorry, not the back, the right side. Go ahead and save that. Ultimately here, though, you've got all your notes. I mentioned that this is one of the tabs here where you can just take general notes. Everything looks pretty good. I think this was a scheduling note that I can just delete from a previous template, or you can add in the dates that you wanted there. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with this quote. I might want to lower the price a little bit just to secure the work. I know this customer might be liking to see that price a little bit under 6,000, so I'm going to go 5,990. Or let's go 5,970. It's not going to make that big of a difference. Okay, I'm going to publish that. And then I'm going to click share. And that's where I'm going to send the quote off to the customer and follow up with them and answer any of the questions they might have. So again, in this video, we covered a lot. We covered adjusting your rates, and we covered the takeoff process on an exterior example that I just pulled off the internet. So the bottom line is, with these production rates, you can quote everything accurately, and you can give your crew exact times that they need to hit. And you can even implement a bonus system like we have. I can talk about that in another video if anybody's interested. But yeah, please follow along for future videos. We have more to talk about. And thanks for sticking with me so far.